I remember making the change and stopping Minecraft, and for about 6 months, my channel like bled subscribers.
Wow,
like
just
600,000 subscribers I lost at a time where I didn't have that many. Maybe I had like 2 million or something like that. But
that's a big loss.
Yeah, and I remember thinking constantly, why was I making that decision?
I'm Louis Cole. Welcome to the Recharged podcast. In this series, I invite fellow content creators and artists to explore exciting ways to make a difference in the world. I take my guests to visit local social good projects in my self-converted electric 1973 Volkswagen van. We have real and raw conversations about life and hear from social good heroes that we can all be inspired by.
On today's podcast is our guest Borja Vazquez, aka Luzu, a comedian, filmmaker and pioneer in the online gaming community. He's one of the biggest Spanish-speaking YouTubers with a social following of over 23 million and is known for his creative, fun and high-energy gaming videos. He's also shared a lot of his life experiences and self-development on his vlog channel.
So today on the podcast we have Luzu. Welcome.
How is it going?
Welcome to the podcast. Yeah, it's going well. How are you doing? You've had a bit of your life's been turned upside down recently, isn't it?
So I just became a dad.
Congratulations.
Thanks. And yeah, it's been 2 months. It's definitely, it has an adapting curve, but one that slaps you in the face in like a matter of an hour, and you have to get ready,
Yeah.
But it's also like super, I don't know, it's super exciting. I don't know how to explain it. I've always heard people saying like, I'm super tired, but it's worth it and stuff like that. And it's the only reason why I would not sleep and continue to do all the things that I need to do,
Yeah.
and still feel happy.
So you and Lana are just sleep deprived at the moment, you think?
No, I think we're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
But still, even if you do great, you have to wake up like several times during the night. So like I'm the type of person that I go to sleep and I fall asleep within 5 minutes and I'll wake up early, like at 4:30 or something like that. But I don't wake up at all through the night. So it's great. I've always woke up really early, but now that thing of like waking up every 2 hours or whatever for the feedings and changing diapers and stuff, like that's something that you can't get used to or get ready for,
Well, let's rewind a little bit. I'd love to hear maybe like a 3-minute life story, just for people that don't know who you are.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear just like, summarize your journey so far in life.
All right. So, I'm Luzu. I'm originally from Spain, from Getxo, which is a small like beach area near Bilbao, a city in the north of Spain. And yeah, I've always been into like recording stuff. My dad had a little like, beta camera back in the day that I would record things at home and stuff. And so I studied audiovisual communication, which is like film, radio, and TV. I was working at film distribution in Spain, and at age 24, something like that, I decided to come to the United States to take a break, to enjoy life, and study a little bit more. And so once I was here, I went to UCLA, I got a job as an editor and producer at a production company, and I started doing YouTube videos around 2011 or 2012, something like that.
And that was just on the side, like during when you had your job?
Yeah, it was more like I
Like
started to be really interested in it because it's about the time that I discovered creators, right? Like Jenna Marbles and all these people that were making videos once a week or whatever, and I was amazed because it was so many people here. We're making a TV show, and there's less people, and the amount of production that there's behind it. And look at these guys online just with a camera, and so I pitched it at my job, but it wasn't really their thing, and so I decided to do it on my free time. Basically, when I would get home or whatever, I would record videos and post them, and they eventually became a little bit more popular, and the channel started to grow to the point where I could quit my job and do it full time.
And those videos were in Spanish?
Yeah, the first channel, not a lot of people know this, but the first ever channel that I did was in English, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was kind of like my kindergarten, type of thing. And I did it for a year, but I only got like 1,000 subscribers, which by that time wasn't that bad, honestly. But yeah, it took another 6 months to rest and rethink what I wanted to do, like what I really wanted to do to the videos, and not just what I thought that could be popular or work, And I started my Spanish channel because I also figured I can communicate a lot better in Spanish. I can do jokes, I'm more eloquent, everything,
And there's probably a lot less Spanish creators to compete with, and there's probably like a really hungry Spanish-speaking audience that want to find more Spanish content, right?
And definitely there was something that helped me, which was that because I consumed so much American content, I was like an American YouTuber speaking in Spanish, which was very appealing to my audience, I think, in terms of like the look, the things that I would do in the videos and stuff like that. And that channel grew to 8,000 subscribers within maybe 4 months or something like that. So compared to the other channel, like it worked really great. And once I quit my job, I opened my gaming channel, which was the one that ended up like destroying the other one, like growing so fast and stuff. It's been...
And you have like 10 million subscribers on the gaming channel.
Yeah. It's been amazing, honestly. Like, a lot of times I stop and think, this is the best. I really think that I have the best job that I will ever have. You know how sometimes you can tell, not because, you get paid so much, you are a famous athlete, or no, like the whole of it, like the freedom, the fact that I can do like anything I want, whenever I want, the fact that I enjoy it so much, like all those things. And so, that was just a camera and a website, which is crazy.
Wow. And how has the journey been? Because a lot of creators I talk to say, obviously there's this incredible side to it. There's this, being your own boss, having absolute freedom, being able to make loads of money.
Yeah.
Do you think there's another side to it that's been challenging for you at all? Like, I don't know, like work, being a workaholic, being burnt out, maybe getting caught up with the algorithm and chasing views and stuff like that?
I would say that, you've named most of it, right? But I think that people underestimate the psychological side of being a YouTube creator at this level, like with millions of people watching your videos and stuff like that. The way or the role that the algorithm plays, the actual site, how it's been changing through the years, things like that. Like, it's really tough at times, and you don't only have to be like a charismatic person or someone that is creative. You have to be someone that is resilient and someone that has it really clear in their heads what they're doing. That's why it's important to find something that you really love, because if not, I don't know how people would make it through some of the hard times that you have as a YouTube creator, right? Like, you have very sweet moments, but there are a lot of times where it's not that sweet, and you do that on your own without the camera being on, in a room in your house or whatever. And so I would say that's the hardest thing of this job. And there have been moments that have been a lot harder, but I think that surviving those moments have brought like the good ones as well. Like, it's always after a really hard moment that I've lived that I've pushed myself to like get the channel to another of the sweet moments where everything works and there's like another growth to it because I changed things, or I tried to reconnect with what I want to do, kind of.
Yeah.
I remember one of those, especially with the vlogging channel, I wanted to do a lot more things outside, for example, because I used to do vlogs at home, talking to the camera and stuff like that. And I remember coming across one YouTube series that changed a little bit the way I viewed how I did things. And it was the India race.
The rickshaw run. Yeah.
And I remember watching those episodes with you guys, and that was a big thing for me mentally as a creator back then when it was released. And again, because I was here and I was consuming English-speaking content, I was always a little bit ahead when it came to the Spanish one back then, because today everything is very, everything's happening at the same time. I feel like it's so big, there's so many people, but back then, and I did some of the work that I love the most about my channel, which was like Surfing USA California, which was a series going around from North California to all the way to the south, surfing with Lana, and just recording the whole experience with an RV, which was like you can tell, like when you see it, you can tell if you know that it's based on that. Like this has the same feeling, right, of being out just with a camera or something, you know. And after that, it's been always. I think that as time has gone by, I've tried to be more of a creator that enjoys what he does rather than one that looks for, you know, for success. Like maybe you're so hungry at the beginning and you want your channel to grow and stuff like that.
Well, it's kind of redefining what is success. Like, is it the big numbers and the money at the risk of losing actually doing something you enjoy and you end up miserable?
Yeah.
And I guess the question for you is like, what do you think you have a goal or mission with your channel and with the content that you create? Like, is there some goal? Is it just to entertain? Is it to inspire people?
I think it's been a little bit of both. At the beginning, it's more selfish. It's more like within you. That's kind of like the realm where you work. And as you do YouTube and you connect with people, you realize the power that the videos have, the power you have within people's minds as well. If you are a certain type of creator, my channel has had a huge inspirational thing for people as well, because one of the best videos in it, one of the first viral videos that I had was one talking about this whole thing about like people that think that success is based on money and acquiring things and stuff like that, and how important it is to find something that you really, really enjoy and it speaks about you. And I think that since then, meeting people in events or, you know, going to Spain and stuff like that, them telling me the effect that video had in them is something that is always in the back of my head now when I make content. Like I want it to be entertaining, I want it to look good and stuff like that, but I wanted to leave something behind with people when they watch it, you know? And so, I don't know, it's something that feels definitely really good and that makes what you do be worth something else than just, you know, monetization or views. But I always think also that this is kind of like, you know how you always see actors that are like A-list actors in Hollywood or whatever, and at some point they start doing like independent cinema or projects that they're very passionate about. I feel like it's the same thing with YouTube. At some point every YouTuber realizes, I need to do something that is, you know, like that speaks about me once I'm done with this. I don't want to just be abuse-based YouTuber or someone that just was chasing the trend at the moment.
Yeah, there's got to be a deeper purpose to it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's so true. Like the bigger your audience grows, I feel like the more you feel like, well, what is it that I want to be, you know, that label of being an influencer.
Yeah.
It's like, what is it that I want to influence people to do? Is it to get out? You know, for me, for a long time, it was get out, explore the world, to travel, to live an adventurous life.
Yeah.
But I love that there's a challenge there for us when we have millions of people listening to us to be like, oh, we could actually have a really positive impact on people. And it could just be kind of entertainment, something that lifts people's moods, gives them something to smile about at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And then I think we can weave into that kind of, I don't know, like talking about social impact and issues that are going on in the world. And have you had any experience kind of doing, I guess, more charitable stuff on your channel or fundraising things?
Yeah, it's always been very small stuff
Yeah.
on the vlogging channel. But I think it's great because the freedom that we were talking about allows every creator, no matter who they are, because everyone also in real life are interested in something, right? Rather, or maybe it's a more like micro thing in their community or something more like a big picture thing that they want to, you know, like impact on. And for me, it's always like I've always been more interested, especially lately in the last years, in people's like inner happiness and inner peace in a way, or like us learning how to deal with things that happen in our lives and the problems that we experience and stuff like that. So that's what I was saying, like it's great because you can be someone that thinks really globally, like how can I have an effect in the world that is better, like in a really big scale, in terms of like helping communities or awareness about certain things and stuff like that. And for me, it's been aligned with my own search of that like calm and that piece of like who I am and trying to do things in my life that make me feel like I'm living a life that is worth living, or that is, you know, like, I don't know how to explain it, but I guess it's something about getting to the 30s and then you start, you know what I mean? Like you start
reflecting more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I start looking back as well, because this whole thing, I think it started by the fact that I had so many teenagers watching my videos, and I would look back to my teenage years and think like, what was I worried about? What were the things that I would go to bed and would think about? What things would I change? And I think that's led me to be a person that I don't worry a lot about things. I'm very analytical and very pragmatic about the things that happen in life. And I see so many people suffering about things that they could deal with better. That has been something that I talk a lot about in my videos and try to spread whenever I talk about different themes or different usual life problems, because even though it seems like we are all very different, we all deal with the same things. Like inside, that's the true magic of life, is that we all live the same life. Some of us have bigger problems or smaller problems at some point, but it's all the same thing, and we're all very connected, even though we don't think so. And so that's something that I've loved about YouTube in the last years, you know, being able to talk to people in a more personal way and not think so much about, again, Fortnite and this is doing great. Like I always wanted to have something behind it in a different level.
Well, I think that's the great thing. It's like people watch YouTubers because they feel like they want to connect to somebody that's real.
Yeah.
And often the mainstream celebrity world, there's like a bigger detachment from, I don't know, even musicians and movie stars and stuff. And I feel like there's something beautiful about being able to share the authentic side of our lives and vlog about little things going on, and or, you know, the journey. I think people love seeing the journey, because none of us are like perfect. None of us do everything in our life perfectly. But I feel like to share with people like the journey we're taking, the things we're starting to realize, and the things we're doing to better our own lives, hopefully, can inspire people to make steps in their lives. And I love what you said about, it's obviously there's these bigger issues we need to address, but I think it always starts with the individual. It always starts with your own working on yourself and figuring out like your own heart and finding that peace, and then it gives us the capacity and energy to go and do bigger things.
It's funny because it's also very aligned to, or I've noticed for myself, it's very aligned to my age and what I'm experiencing in life at the moment. Like now that I'm a dad, I also have this huge feeling of like purpose and legacy, like what I want my kid. I use Ollie, my kid, as a way of like seeing through his eyes in 20 years what I did, you know what I mean? And who I am as a creator right now, as a dad, as a friend, as a partner, like all these things. And as I said, like the great thing is that every channel is different, every person is going through a different thing, and being vulnerable and sharing the things without sugarcoating them sometimes, and letting people know that it's all right to feel in a certain way at some point, or mess up things in life and still do great after. And all those things is what I think about most. But yeah, who knows, right? Like who knows how our kids will see what we're doing right now in 20 years.
Quite a few of the podcasts we've had this conversation around the fear of failure and the fear of messing up. I'd love to hear maybe an example in your life where you've failed or messed up, but you've managed to, you know, pull through and find your way out of that.
Ooh, that's...
It's a tough question, but
Yeah, it is.
I think a lot of people shy away from talking about the journey, and it means that people are scared to fail. But if you look at anyone that's traditionally successful, they've had so many failures, but it's almost you have to embrace that and be like, oh, that's just a part of life, and it's a part of the process, is being willing to fail and pick yourself up again.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I don't know, in like bigger terms of my life, there's been a lot of failure. I wouldn't be even able to, to find something. I think all of our lives are like that, and great things happen because we tend to see people on screens, no matter if it's YouTube, the movies, or news, whatever, and we see them maybe like celebrating a success, and we don't know all the hardship that there is behind that.
Exactly,
you can't see that timeline. You only see it once you're done with it, right? Like once you arrive. In my YouTube career, I feel like the moments of celebration didn't bring me as much as the moments where I did something that I learned from, like a mistake, something. I remember when I started the YouTube, like the gaming channel, with Minecraft. That was my thing back in the day. And after a couple of years of doing just Minecraft, I thought, well, I want to branch out. I want to do other things. I want to, I don't want to just do this all the time, right? Like I don't want to upload like meaningless Minecraft videos all the time, even though I have fun. And I made this huge plan to shift my content to like variety in a time. This is before variety also was the thing in gaming. And I changed everything, the way my thumbnails, the look of the channel, the videos, even my attitude. I would be on camera, which I wasn't before as much. And I remember making the change and stopping Minecraft, and for about 6 months, my channel like bled subscribers.
Wow,
like
just
600,000 subscribers I lost at a time where I didn't have that many. Maybe I had like 2 million or something like that, but
that's a big loss.
Yeah, and I remember thinking constantly, why was I making that decision, right? Like to not bend to the need to like fall back and go back to Minecraft. And every night I would go out and I would have a walk where I would tell myself why I was doing that, and to like just stand still and wait and wait and wait, because I believe that change was needed. And so like it was a lot of like mental work with myself every day. And in the moment where the views were lower and everything was lower, Pokemon Go came out, and I had been waiting for that game for a long time.
I love Pokemon Go.
Yeah. No one knew when it came out, right? Like before it came out, no one knew that it was gonna be what it was. But the evening that it came out, I grabbed my camera and I went out in my neighborhood and I recorded a little video, just enjoying, without planning anything, just enjoying the game. And I got home and I was like, oh, this is great. I had so much fun. I don't know if people are gonna like it, but whatever, right? I edited it and I uploaded it in the evening, which is not something that I would usually do, but I was like, I'm just gonna put it out to see if people like it.
Yeah.
And I woke up and it had gone viral, and my channel had a growth of 900%. And and my videos went from having, I don't know, maybe 80,000 views, 90,000 views to like 5 million within 3 days.
Wow.
And that moment taught me so much, not because of the success of that video in that moment, but because all the time that I was suffering, like all that work that I was doing and trying to like stay on the lane that I chose and all that stuff, like, and now every time I have a hard moment, I always go back to that. And I remember how bad I was thinking about all these things, and like, and how if I make a choice and I believe in something, I have to stick to it, It's not always gonna be easy. I know it's very vague for a lot of people, but these are the experiences that we, like we experience things in a certain way, and depending on what we do and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's like people might not relate to that exact scenario, but if you relate to it as like, there's something that you want to be doing, but it's not working for you yet, but you really feel like, no, this is the right thing, then it's like good to stick at that, even if it takes a while, because eventually, hopefully things will
and the reward doesn't need to be views or money or anything. It can be just the joy of doing what you like. and enjoying. Like, people underestimate what it is to do a job. I talk about this so much. I went to university, I did all this stuff, and I always tell people, like, choose wisely. Like, we make choices about our careers at a time in our lives where we don't know what it's gonna be like to wake up every day of your life and do something. It doesn't mean that you have to go out and be a rock star or an artist. It could be being a nurse, veterinarian, gardener. Like, if it's something that you like, choose that, because like, doing something that you are not aligned with is awful. And it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, when you're 60, you're gonna look back, and the money that you made or the money that you didn't make is not gonna be something that matters. You're gonna look back and you're gonna think if you were happy most of your life or if you were miserable every single morning when an alarm went off. And I talk about that so much because I've been lucky enough that I've ended up in a career that I really, really love, you know?
Okay, one final question before we arrive. Oh, the brakes are kind of crazy. One final question before we arrive. You were talking about your perspectives changed since becoming a dad, and like you think about kind of the world that Ollie's going to grow up in.
Yeah.
How would you want to see things change in the current world we live in for Ollie? Like, where do you think there needs to be, like, you really hope there's a change in how we operate society, how we treat one another? Like, paint a picture of what the world could look like in 20 years for you.
I wish that in 20 years, it would be great. We can live in a world where people focus more on helping each other and less in judging one another. I think that it's been all, like everything convergent. Is that a word? Or am I just making that up?
No, I think convergent.
Yeah, so like it's all different roads getting to one place that we're at right now, with social media and a lot of other things that make judgment really cheap. And so people make it all the time without thinking what that means. I think that we need to accept a lot more people's differences, people's choices, be okay even if we're not the same as people that surround us, and embrace that rather than, like, put a barrier. I know it sounds more about other issues that we've had in the past, but the truth is that right now I feel like personally people choose very small things that they are different in, like in choices. It could be political, it could be other social stuff, or even like educational, and they take those and they choose to, like, all right, I'm absolutely a different human than this one, and I don't have anything to do. And
rather than realizing we're all connected.
Yeah, that all, like, as I said, we all go through the same things. When we go to bed, probably most of us are worrying about the same things, about the same, like, basics. And when you go through things in life, like even with family, like I've grown up thinking that me and my mom, for example, which is really random, right? But like a lot of people are probably gonna be able to relate to this. I've always felt really different to my mom, for example, in the choices that I make, in the way that I choose to approach people or conflict, things like that, right? And it took me losing my mom like a couple of years ago for me to dig into that relationship and choose to take with me the things that were similar of us rather than the ones that weren't. We spend a lot of time concentrating in things that we should not concentrate, instead of finding things that are great about the people that surround us, our family, our friends, the situations that we live, things like that. So even though it's very general and probably people are gonna make different things of what I'm saying, I hope that Ollie in 20 years lives in a world where people are kinder to each other and not, and don't choose conflict when they wake up in the morning.
Yeah, no, that's perfect, man.
Where are you taking me?
Right, so we've come to visit an organisation. So we're going to jump out now and carry on. It's going to be like more of an interactive video podcast.
Yeah.
Today we're visiting Phil America, an artist, designer and activist who uses installations and sculptures, performance photography, video and fashion to explore relationships with class, gender and race. He hosts a class for students affected by the prison system at Los Angeles High School of the Arts as a part of the POPS organisation. The mission of POPS is to create an inclusive space for youth who have been stigmatised and silenced by their experiences with the carceral system, with a goal to build positive self-identity and understanding fostered by shared experiences, empowering students to achieve their full potential by building a loving community and encouraging self-expression.
So this is Phil from POPS.
Yep.
Right, do you want to explain a bit about what you do, a bit of your kind of the story behind the organisation and stuff, and what we're going to do today?
Yeah, so POPS has been around for like 7 years-ish, a little bit more, and we essentially focus on creative writing and use POPS as a kind of a tool or a conduit to talk about issues around incarceration and around the carceral state. And so all of the students who come are affected by the prison system, and that's why POPS stands for Pain of the Prison System. And so we live in a country where, you know, over 10 million children are affected by directly having a parent or two parents in the prison system or who have been through the prison system. And
the US has like the highest incarceration rate in the world,
by a
right?
lot. You know, we got 4% of the world's population, 25% of the world's prisoners. It's just absolutely ridiculous. More people incarcerated than China, even though China's got, you know, 10 times more people than we do. So we're in a very dire situation around incarceration where we need to take a look at this system and break this system down. And so when you think about incarceration, you often think about the person sitting inside of a cage, and you forget about the kids who are affected directly by it, or the family members. And so if you're, you know, without a father, without a mother, or without any parent, you can imagine what that situation looks like for somebody. So POPS goes into the classrooms, and we create clubs within the schools, and we essentially do creative writing. And so myself and Casey, another teacher, we've kind of created a program within POPS where we're doing, instead of just creating the creative writing stuff, we're actually quite literally creating paintings. And so we've got a couple students here. These two students are former students, and we've had like a lot of people come through and go on to do great things. One of them graduated today from college, so we're celebrating her win, you know. But yeah, that's essentially what we do, is try to create a way for the kids and a space for the kids to talk about the issues that come along with having a parent or parents who are incarcerated.
Yeah, that's amazing. Also, feel free to jump in any questions you got. But we were talking on the way here about like what would the world look like in 20 years if we could dream about seeing a big shift in society. And for me, one of them would be a complete rethink of how the whole system of punishment in the US works, concentrating a lot more on like how can we rehabilitate people, because I feel like once you've served time in the US, it's almost impossible to get back to some kind of normal life. From what I understand, I've seen a few of those documentaries, like 13 and stuff, and it's like, that word you said of like, it is a dire situation. So I love that you're looking from a different angle as well of like, how can we support the families and the children of people that are incarcerated. And
yeah, these are kind of the forgotten victims, right?
Exactly, because otherwise, from what I understand, is it can often be this kind of cycle where if a child's being brought up without like parenting, it can create that cycle of, you know, falling into crime or whatever it is that can kind of just.
Yeah, I mean, and you see the kids who are affected in a direct way where they've had a family member incarcerated, there's much higher rates of them ending up in prison as well. Yeah. So that's exactly it. And it is a situation where we need to actually quite literally rethink the entire system. And it ends up, you know, Angela Davis said it best, is reform is the thing that everybody talks about, and that just ends up being a way that they protect this system, and it just evolves and adapts.
Yeah, let's just tweak it slightly, but it's...
And what we need to do is tear it all down and think of an entirely new way. And certainly, like myself and POPS, I don't think we have the answers, and we're just trying to take care of the people who are affected by it, you know, in the immediate. But there needs to be a complete revamp of this system, and a new way we think about this, creating ways where we deal with the issues before it gets to the issue. Create a system that doesn't, and communities that people don't need to commit crimes to be able to survive and take care of their children. And you know, that's something that we need to be thinking about a lot more right now.
Yeah. Well, I know obviously it's so nuanced. There's so many different moving parts to it all, but I love that you've found this one angle of like, okay, well, we can't solve everything, but let's at least
do something.
Yeah.
Something. And I think that that's what everybody's doing right now, is everybody's realizing that, hey, we've got to do something. And whether it's about, the oceans, whether it's about the planet, whether it's about the families, whether it's about incarceration, I mean, everybody right now is trying to figure out what we can do. And so, all of it intersects somewhere, and this is one of the things we got to deal with. We got to deal with these families who are quite literally suffering because they're missing one of their family members or more than one. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, what's this project here? Can we get involved with some of the painting and stuff?
Yes. Do you want to paint something?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So, Casey, do you want to tell them a little bit about what's going on?
Yeah. So basically, Phil and I, Pops was contracted by the county to come up with a class for this after school program that's like happening out in Palmdale, and so Phil and I kind of wanted to bring together like this idea of like creative expression and like really like self-awareness, like understanding who we are and like what we want and like what we care about, and then expressing that in a creative way. We wanted to combine that with like this idea of like social justice and creating change in the world, and and so we took these kids through, or I, like Phil and I came up with the class, but I was mostly teaching the class, and we took these kids through like some mindfulness exercises and like different self-awareness practices, and sort of combined that with or took that from the self-awareness to like the creative expression and conversations around social justice, and then we asked them to come up with, to think about like what they cared about, like what they wanted to change in the world, and to come up with a sketch and design these pillars.
This is blowing my mind because obviously you guys don't know, but we were literally talking about this stuff. So I just became a dad 2 months ago, and I've been thinking
Congrats.
I've been thinking a lot about this stuff, about legacy, about who my kid is gonna see when he looks at me, finding what you really are passionate about in life. We're talking about this because of our careers and stuff like that, and how important it is to connect to who you are, and and learn that, and not just do what is you're supposed to, or what you feel like other people expect of you and stuff like that. So it's great.
Like breaking away from those social expectations.
Like really finding what makes you happy, what drives you, or what could make a difference for you. And so since you started talking, I've been just thinking about, first of all, how this situation would affect me or my kid if that happened.
Yeah.
It was weird because I can relate to it right now, and I couldn't before,
Right.
But it's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we're living in a time when we have to think about what do we want to leave for the next generation, whether it's our kids, whether it's other people's kids, and it's a serious situation, and the world is upside down in a lot of ways right now, so it's important.
I loved what you're saying as well about like helping kids kind of find their voice, and like kind of looking at themselves first and then thinking about bigger social issues. And we were literally having that same conversation of like, you can jump straight into like, oh, there's all these huge things we need to figure out in the world, but if you're not starting with yourself and that journey of self-discovery and really figuring out who you are, then it's kind of, you're jumping the gun. You're trying to do, it needs to start with yourself, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think like we're like you were saying, we're sort of like socialized to be a certain way in the world, right? To show up like a certain way in the world, and most of us, I think, are not. That's not like what we do. We don't like take that introspective. We're not practiced in that, right? And so we really want to encourage kids to think about like, how does this impact me? Like, how do I feel about the things that I see in the world?
Yeah.
And then respond, whether it's like through creativity and like sharing your message, sharing your thoughts, and also like through activism.
And I think art is a great tool for that, And so Pops has done, I believe it's 7 books up until now that they've published. You can find them in Barnes & Nobles, on Amazon, fuck Amazon. But yeah, you can find it all over the place. And so all these kids that want to come as a student affected by this system and leave as a published writer. And a lot of them have done, we've had book launches. We had the Lucas brothers at the last book launch. The kids have spoken at Barnes & Nobles at the book launches and things like that. So it's really inspiring to see them come and leave as, with this kind of mark on their shoulder, or like, feather in their cap.
The books, are they like a compilation? Sorry. Are the books like a compilation of different pieces of creative writing from the kids? It's kind
Exactly that. So, there's obviously no pressure within the class to speak. There's no pressure in the class to write. So the ones who do and the ones who are happy to share that, we end up putting it in the book, and then we publish the book, which is a kind of an anthology of all of their writings. And so this has kind of been an extension of that, where we said, hey, instead of doing it all through the lens of writing, let's try to use something like more visual, some kind of visual art. And so within the books, there's also visual art. It's not only writing, because some of them are photographers, some of them, express themselves in a different way. But, with this, we've kind of taken both written stuff as well as visual art and used it as a way to talk about these issues that they care about and that they value, and hopefully, use pops and use these ways as a way to kind of elevate their words and highlight what they have to say, rather than just the parents being the ones, or the adults, us being the ones saying the change we need to see, rather that giving the kids a voice and listen to them say what they need to see in this world. So
cool. Well, should we grab some paintbrushes and help out?
Sure.
Is there only white paint?
Yeah, so there's white, and basically, I don't know, Casey can tell you a little more, but basically, there's also black, but let me see, where's the other paintbrush?
There's 3. Did you bring them forward?
No, I think there's only 3.
Yeah.
But basically, at the class.
So where are these going to end up?
So, Casey, you can tell them a little bit more about it.
So this class is happening through a park in Palmdale, and we're hoping to have it
like an installation,
publicly displayed.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. But yeah, if you guys want to, just so you can start off. Did you paint all this way?
Pretty much.
Yeah, and you can paint over top of these letters. Also, you can paint over top of these letters just white.
All right. Well, how can I help you, since you've been doing this?
Wait, why you want to start on the top?
So
Because
just
you wanna
on
get
top
it-
of the letters?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, they start off like a sketch, and then you want to
Like that?
clean up
Yeah.
around it. So it's okay.
All right,
So
I don't want to mess it
shows
up.
through faintly.
Oh, and then they can someone
Yeah.
can trace over
It's
it with the
okay.
black.
That's why we
Yeah,
have
just
white.
make sure you spread that paint well so you can still see the
All right.
letters underneath.
Yeah.
And so for this particular class, it's been much different than the other classes, where, we've kind of tried to also have, with the other classes, it's through the lens of writing, which all these students are quite familiar with, whereas with painting, a lot of the students have never painted something before. And so having to teach them about that, and then at the same time also teach them about mindfulness, which is Casey's kind of expertise.
Yeah.
And getting them to really hone in on what their values are and what they care about, and then turning that into a visual expression.
I've noticed most of it's around environmentalism. It seems like most the things that people care about the most.
Right now with films like Seaspiracy and all this, and how serious the planet is to our future. We have no planet, we have no future. So I think luckily we've got the young kids thinking about that.
Yeah, Seaspiracy was powerful.
Way too powerful.
Yeah.
Way too powerful.
Did you see that one, Luzu?
No, I haven't. But I've had a couple of rough months, but I'll get back into.
You'll get into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to prepare yourself for it. It's heavy. It's definitely heavy.
I love the fact that you guys also using all this stuff, like you were talking about photography, writing, stuff like that. I feel like we don't embrace things that we might be great at just because at the time when we're teenagers and stuff like that, we just don't want to make a lot of noise.
Right. Right.
I remember one of my teachers, because we make YouTube videos, we make content, and I've made a career out of communicating, and I recently I went to my school to give a talk to the kids and stuff like that.
Back in Spain?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
After the wedding, a little bit after the wedding, like
Yeah.
a year and a half ago or something like that. And my language teacher gave me a thing, and he told me that it's funny that I ended up doing this because I was really good at speaking, but I would never want to go out in the blackboard. That's when we would do presentations and stuff like that. I never wanted to, because I didn't want to be made fun of or stand out in any way or anything like that, right? And after in life, I have joy out of speaking into a microphone, connecting with people, things like that. He gave me this little short story. I don't know how it would translate, but I want to try. It's basically a doctor is looking at this kid that has fell off a cliff, and he finds wings under his clothes. He asks him, if you were falling, why didn't you use your wings? And the kid responds, use my wings and what, like have everyone laugh at me because I have wings? So basically saying that we don't embrace who we truly are, that could make us great just because of what people think and stuff like that. And it's great that kids have a chance as well to express themselves through all these things like art and photography and writing, and because you never know who's great, and maybe they're just not doing it because they don't want to like be, he likes this or he likes that, or he might be the next greatest photographer or the next greatest undiscovered writer, or who knows.
Yeah, I think we live in a society that doesn't necessarily embrace creativity. And I'm sure had you been in school and said, hey, I'm going to go on to be a YouTube star, they're going to be like, what are you talking about? It's the same thing with kids when you tell them, hey, I want to be a writer, I want to be an actor, I want to be a basketball player, I want to be an artist. I mean, there isn't the same fostering of that creativity and support.
And mentors, because as well, like in my field, I didn't have a role model in my dad, for example, right? Like my dad was a doctor back in Spain, and so my family wasn't a thing, right? Maybe if I had been born in a family that was writing, doing other things, but in this case also with kids that might not have a close role model all the time to explore these things, or I don't know, like it's huge.
It is huge, yeah.
I think
just
there's like a real like element of vulnerability
Yeah.
in expressing yourself creatively.
Yeah.
Like you're putting yourself out there, you're taking a risk. And I think like people are willing to take risks. Like all of us are like willing to take risks. But we have to be like taught that like these risks are worth it.
Yeah.
And we were talking about like the fear of failure is a massive thing. It stops people doing anything,
Right.
stops people taking risks. It's like, what if I fail? But we need to embrace in our society that failure is inevitable and it's a part of the journey.
Yeah.
And it's not something we should avoid at all costs, like failure is a part of the learning process.
Yeah, I think that's something that we need to do a little bit better job of, especially our generation, just supporting the creatives, supporting the people who want to step out of the box and like show their wings,
Yeah, I mean that story is powerful because like literally it shows like metaphorically how people are like willing to sacrifice themselves like just for like this sense of safety, just like imagined sense of safety.
And again,
Oh, go ahead.
No, sorry.
I was going to say, we've seen that in the classroom a lot also. Just a lot of the kids who will come in and sit and for the first 2, 3, 4 weeks not say a single word. And then eventually like you start to foster and support that creativity, and then the confidence comes out. And then they read the poem and it's incredible because they have so much to say, and then you kind of like build off of that. And so just that support is huge.
It needs to be the people surrounding you that like lift you a little bit as well. Absolutely. That's why I was saying like it's maybe that age when we're teenagers and we're in school, or like 11, 12, that we don't feel comfortable, and we usually don't feel comfortable because we don't have people around us that make us feel comfortable. It would be great if how many kids we would discover they can do great things if that was the default setting, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why you see it in cities where you have great support, then you see the great artists come about.
Yeah.
And the great artists are everywhere. They just don't have the same support. You could look at like Motown and how many incredible musicians came from this one little area. And it's not just because that area somehow has something in the water.
Yeah.
It's because in that area they have community and they have spaces where they support one another. And so, you know, that's the same thing that essentially Pops is trying to do, is foster and support those artists to come out and to write something, to paint something, and for us to be able to let them spread their wings.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that community element
It's
is
huge.
crucial.
It's huge. Yeah, and then I mean they're now having friends and having people that they can count on and support and show up for and show up for them when they need something. And you know, if you're alone and dealing with something in high school, it's, as we all know, very tough. And if you've all of a sudden got people around you who are going through similar situations that you can call when you need to, that you can rely on and share with, it's huge. So I think that for me, the biggest thing about Pops is just the pure support group and the confidence that they build with each other. And it really has nothing to do with myself, with Casey, with the school itself. It's just that the community that they build amongst each other that becomes what's really, really important in lifelong support groups, you know.
Yeah.
So has it been really tough over like the COVID time in terms of like actually connecting with kids, because it's all had to go virtual, right?
So insanely hard. And I don't want to speak for the kids, but I'll say for myself, it's been really hard just because I didn't grow up with the internet, you know. I didn't grow up with all of this kind of virtual stuff, whereas the younger kids, they're just so used to kind of FaceTiming everybody. And I think it's been a little bit easier on them, if I had to guess, but it's tough, man. It's a tough time.
I don't think you can beat like face-to-face in real life, meeting people, meeting up with people for community.
Well, I think one thing too that not a lot of people think about is not everybody's in a safe space to talk about things, you know? And so in this classroom, everything that happens in the classroom stays in the classroom, and we can control that, and we can support one another, and we can, you know, respect people's privacy. And then all of a sudden you've got a kid who's at home who is now having to talk about very serious issues or be extremely vulnerable around their, you know, direct family. Not all of them have a room that they can, you know, go to, or a quiet place. And so we've actually had to get headphones for some of the students, and a lot of the students, you know, tune in and don't say anything. And, you know, it's tough. It's been a lot tougher than, you know, everybody's already at the school and they just come to the classroom. So
and are things starting to open up again, or have you started meeting in person?
Slowly, yeah. Everybody's starting to go back. So it's nice. Like everybody's getting, you know, to a place where they feel comfortable to be around other people, and things are getting safer. So
I think also it's like something that people don't talk about a lot, but one of the bad side effects of everything getting shut down is that people's home lives and situations aren't often safe, like you said, and it's like not having that place to escape to get to school, and it's caused a lot of, I don't know, like domestic abuse, and probably like heightened the tension in family situations.
Certainly, especially if your situation at home is already unstable. So I think it's been tough for a lot of people. I mean, it's been tough for all of us, as we know, and just if you've got that added element of an unstable home, and then they tell you got to stay home, it's hard on anybody, I think. So it's been rough. But then, you know, you see on the flip side, you see people with these incredible stories, and like literally graduating from college after going through Pop's program. It's just, these things are what are inspiring. So there's a beautiful side at the other end of the tunnel as well. So
yeah, and Pops has continued, like even through the I mean, I'm sure that I think that their like attendance in the clubs went down some, but they kept it going. And a lot of the schools, like the kids kept showing up virtually to the...
How many schools are you working out of?
18 at the moment.
It's like throughout the country. I think in 5 different states.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, we're in like Pennsylvania, New York State. Started in Venice High School here in Los Angeles.
So how can people watching or listening kind of support what you guys are doing? Where can they find
Maybe
it?
ask them. They probably have a better idea of how people can show up and support.
I'd also love to hear from you girls a bit more. I know you've been like quietly painting, but how's being involved with Pops kind of changed your life? And
so me growing up, I was at the Pops Club, I want to say, when I went to Venice High School. I went to Venice High School for a year.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to 3 different high schools. But I was at Venice my junior year. I believe it was like 2015. And one of my best friends, she was like, you should come to Pops, you should come to Pops. I was like, what is that? And I went, and I was like, wow, this is like, it was such a like safe place where I could, you know, people were experiencing some of the same things that I was experiencing, and I didn't feel like alone, and I just felt like it was very motivating. It made it feel like, okay, yes, I am dealing with a lot at home, but I come here and I'm able to, you know, open up, and I'm able to change my life. I'm able to get out of the situations I'm in. Like, there's more for me in the world than just where I came from and what I'm going through. So, yeah.
Wow. And it must be cool to have, like, to be able to express yourself and even have that, your voice kind of heard, whether it's through like the books that have been published. Like, I imagine that's like super cool to be able to.
Yeah, it is. It feels really empowering. Like I said, it's really motivating. It's like, okay, like I have this for myself, and it just showed me my own potential.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool.
That's awesome.
It's really good experience. Yeah.
Cool.
And you graduated today?
Yeah, so I'm graduating. I ended up going to college.
Oh,
and,
wow.
Yeah, I'm graduating from San Francisco State today. It's virtual. I'm not going to the graduation. I graduated.
That's kind of sad as well, though, right?
Yeah,
That you can't go.
Yeah. But Pops also made me, so my focus is political science, that's my major, and focus in public law. So I feel like it also, like, it made me want to, like, change the system. Like, just keep fighting, you know, keep trying to, like, help other people and help people, kids whose parents are incarcerated, and, like, you know, that type of field. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
You graduate when?
I graduate in June.
Yeah.
I'm also a political science major with a concentration in law and society. Like Miranda said, sorry, I don't know who to look at. But like Miranda said, I guess Pops also sort of impacted that passion in me with as far as changing the system from like the carceral state to the legal system. And I've also been involved in Pops since 9th grade. I went to Venice High.
Wow. So how many years is that?
I went there for 4 years. So
Okay.
how long has it been?
Yeah, since you were
Well,
involved with Pops.
I guess 7, 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm still involved. I do have a few pieces in one of the books. And yeah, and to go back to your question, I think if people want to help get involved with Pops, I think donations is always helpful. If you know anybody from, I think ages like anywhere from maybe 10 and up, I mean, it's a helpful organization for all ages at this point. And like I said, whether you've been impacted yourself or, and it doesn't, again, just have to be the carceral state necessarily. It can be, like I said, legal system, immigration. Yeah.
So is it open for anybody in the US, or is it just the states you're currently working in?
It's kind of just the classrooms that we're in now, but students, we're trying to always open in more schools because, as you obviously can imagine, you know, everybody is affected by this in a direct way, and some people far more than others when they lose their parent, right? But we're all affected by the prison system. As long as we are walking around with less people, because some of them are sitting in a box, it's affecting us all. And you know, I think it's 1 in 14 students in high school have a parent in prison now, meaning that if your classroom's 30 people, 2 people have a parent in prison. So it's affecting us all in a very real way, even though we don't know this and talk about it. So we're always trying to get into more schools. So if there's, you know, if you have friends who are teachers at schools or are in touch with people who are at a school and need a Pops Club to come there, we're ready to bring them there.
Well, thanks for sharing. This has been like such an eye-opener to like something I hadn't really given a lot of thought to, like the repercussions of people incarcerated. So yeah, thanks for.
Yeah, I think it's important, and I think that also like the thing that people forget is everybody else who's affected by it. You know, it's maybe it's not us, but maybe it's my friend sitting next to me in the classroom who doesn't have their father around, and I need to show up for them. And so I think it's, you know, you guys coming here and asking the questions and showing up is brave and it's beautiful.
Yeah, I think like ultimately like the message that Pops is trying to communicate is like this is a shared experience.
Yeah.
That people who are struggling with like incarceration directly or indirectly are like you're not alone. You know? Yeah. And like once we can kind of like acknowledge that this affects so many of us, we can start to like really create change and heal.
I love that. Awesome. Well, I guess we should wrap up, but it's...
Yeah. We appreciate you guys a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
It's important.
Yeah, I think it's easy to forget when you think about people in prison that, yeah, like there's probably like 4 or 5 people that have been like, maybe more, like family members that are still out that are like, have been seriously negatively impacted, like heartbroken.
The fact that someone's father, someone's son, someone's partner, people's friend as well. Yeah, I feel like you've managed to create the most Louis podcast that, you know, like if you were to do a podcast, how would it be?
Well, I was like, I have great conversations when I'm on road trips with friends and we're just sitting in the car chatting. So I was like, well, I kind of want to recreate that. It's not totally unique. Obviously, there's like James Corden, carpool karaoke, and comedians in cars getting coffee, and I think Steve-O does like a podcast in his van, maybe. But yeah, I just love vehicles. I'm so obsessed with vehicles. The aim with my school bus is to get it running on recycled vegetable oil rather than diesel.
Yeah.
So I need to install some extra like stuff in that, but that'd be cool because me and Raya are going to drive it all the way down to Costa Rica.
That's crazy.
We told you we would bought our land down there.
Congrats on the engagement, by the way, in person.
Thank you. Well, I was going to bring this up. So I went to Luzu's wedding, when was it, 2 years ago?
Yeah,
Something
in
like that.
2019.
Just before everything went crazy. And I don't know whether this is the Spanish tradition, but do you remember in the evening when we were eating, you and Lana came and gave me and Raya the bouquet, something, like flowers or something, right?
Okay. So what we do is we give a bouquet to 2 couples that we hope are the next ones to get engaged. And I have to say, funny enough, both of the couples are engaged right now.
It's so good.
Yeah. I think it's a mixture of, you know, like at some point people get engaged, but also the weird invisible pressure or ideas that moment put in both people in the relationship. I don't know.
And I remember at the time it was like we had talked about marriage and I knew it was like in the future, but I was also kind of stressed out by the idea back then. But then, yeah, it's come true.
To me, it was the same. It was like I knew it was gonna happen. We were great. Everything we had been together for a long time.
Yeah.
It was just in a matter of like weeks. It just changed in my head. I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna buy the ring, and I'm gonna, you know.
Were you panicking and stressed and stuff? Like I was kind of feeling very nervous.
I mean, I would say for someone that doesn't get nervous, that is one of the only times, even though you kind of know the answer.
Yeah, it's not like she's gonna say no.
Yeah, but it's one of those moments. One of the only things that we have to do right, you know, like because then you do the wedding, and for example, like the bride is kind of like the center of attention. We just had a kid. The mom is the center of attention. So that's one of the only things that we have to perform properly, you know, for the memory. And
going back to your wedding as well. Honestly, it was so inspiring seeing that you just had so much fun with it. Like you had like the stormtroopers.
yeah.
Like, did they walk you down the aisle or they came with the ring or something, right?
Yeah, they took us to the dinner,
Yeah.
like to the reception and stuff like that. I just remember talking with Lana about it, and I am pretty conventional for a lot of things.
Yeah.
And so I knew I wanted some things in the wedding to be conventional, but I also wanted it to be, I didn't want it to be another of those days that everything's super formal and super like, I
And
wanted
it's
to
just
have
the same
fun.
as everyone else's wedding.
Yeah,
as well,
because
like.
we talked about that specifically. Like everyone's wedding feels like the same wedding in a different place.
Yeah, it does. It does.
So-
And there's no like, if you want a traditional wedding, cool. But I loved that you really. There was some traditional parts of it, but it was like I loved that you just had fun as well.
Yeah, and I wanted like the video. I wanted people to go to the wedding and go back home thinking I had so much fun. You know, like the video games. We also had like food and
the
things
video
inside.
games.
Yeah, and we had like, I don't know if you remember this, but we had a girl that would read like your hand or your future.
Oh, yeah.
A magician around, like people doing caricatures. So there was a lot of stuff to not just have to drink and dance, you know, like just to do things. And I honestly, I don't know if it's because we've gone into a pandemic after, but I remember that day. It's like so much fun.
It was so much fun.
I would pay all the money that I have in the bank to have that party tomorrow with everyone again. Dude.
Yeah, I think sometimes in life, as you grow older, I feel like it's easy to forget to have fun and make room for fun in your life, or like having fun becomes less of a priority, and then you get bogged down with like, I don't know, like work or goals you're trying to achieve, or even like the serious parts of your relationship and trying to figure things out. And me and Raya have been saying a lot, like we really want to just prioritize like having fun together. And
I just remember thinking also that so many people, when you ask, once you're engaged, everyone tells you about their wedding and what they liked and didn't and stuff like that. And I remember so many people telling me like, oh, it's gonna go by so fast, you're not even gonna have time to eat a lot. And so I was like, no, I'm gonna be super aware of everything. I'm gonna try my best to be aware of everything that's happening and the fun that I'm having, and my family, my friends, everyone together in a place, you know. And I was able to, and I have great memories of that day. And I was able to eat so much as well. Like, I made that a priority. Like, whenever there would be food in front of me, I would just take it. It's one of those days that you just wish that didn't end.
it was
fast.
in a castle as well. We forgot to mention it was in an amazing castle. Yeah, bro, that was cool. That's such a fun way to celebrate. We're trying to still figure out like when we're going to do it exactly. We don't have a location yet, but probably in Costa Rica.
That's gonna be great.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's a whole new chapter. I think there's like the chapter of, I think we're going to be similar to you guys, that we will hopefully start trying for a baby pretty soon after marriage. I feel like we've been together a while, like
Lana and I
no reason
have
to
been
wait.
together for like 11 years.
Wow.
So it was like, for us it was like, all right, it's not like we're gonna like hardcore try. We're just gonna,
You're
not
gonna
be careful
try. Yeah.
and see what happens. Also because, again, like everything in life, once you're married, people start telling you about how hard it is to get pregnant and all that stuff. So we were like, well, just, we're gonna see. And we were also lucky now that we got pregnant pretty much straight away. And so, it's crazy, dude. It's crazy that now we were talking about the college and all this stuff, right? Like, it's crazy how fast things go by. Like, it's not a joke when...
Yeah, it seems like yesterday I was at school, but then I think, oh, that was kind of like 20 years ago.
Yeah. I thought about it recently too, because through the pandemic I was also like doing classes for my college, for my faculty, and I was telling them, because one of my teachers was like, well, you were here like 18 years ago or something. I don't remember, like 18 years ago. And I was like,
Yeah, it's mad.
it's a whole adult. It's a whole adult far away and it doesn't feel like it's been that long. And I guess it's gonna feel like that about the wedding and about our kids. Like, we're gonna look back, and Lana and I are also trying to be super aware of like every like stage that we spend with Ollie right now, because everyone is like, you want to pass by all these moments of like newborn crying and then the next thing and kind of like get ahead of all of that but we want to remember all this and we want to enjoy these parts.
Have you seen that Adam Sandler movie, Click?
Yeah.
And he tries to fast forward through
super
his
sad
life.
at a
Oh,
moment.
I was crying my eyes out, because it really, if you haven't seen it, people listening, watching, I really recommend it, because it basically emphasizes that exact point of like, we shouldn't be continually like waiting to, for the next thing in our life. It's like being present is what life's about. It's not about like, there's something I heard about, like, living in regret is always living in the past, and living in either hope or fear is living in the future, and all of those kind of rob you of being present in the moment, in the now.
Dude. Like, again, like being able to figure yourself out so that you can be happy where you're at and with the choices that you make and all that stuff, so that you don't have to look back, you don't have to look forward, and you put yourself in places where you are happy and or at least you are aspiring to be, you know, because it's very hard. We always talk about being happy, but truth is it's a chase that we have in life. But
And I think people often also think it's a destination rather than it's the journey itself that is the, you know, feeling the happiness and feeling the...
You know what I'm about to do that I'm super psyched about?
Yeah.
Like last year I wanted to do it. For a while I've been wanting to, but the pandemic got in the way. I don't know if you know what the Camino de Santiago is. The Way of St. James in Spain. It's a pilgrimage.
It's a long pilgrimage, right? Yeah.
So it's basically, it goes from...
It's like a hiking trail.
No, you actually go through the country. Like sometimes you go through mountain and sometimes most of it through towns and cities and stuff like that. But you basically start in the Pyrenees in France and you walk all the way through Spain to the west coast, to Galicia, to this huge cathedral in Santiago de Compostela. And I've been wanting to do it for a while, to have that experience with myself of like the challenge of doing the walk, but also being in my head for...
You want to do it solo?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, also I'm lucky enough that I have a wife that is super supportive and super, you know, and she knows that I crave these experiences and this time in my own head. But yeah, last year I couldn't because of the pandemic, and I'm aiming to do it this year. It's just gonna be a little bit harder because with Ollie, we have to do a lot more.
Do you think she'd come out to Spain and she'd stay here?
No, it's easier. I think she stays here, and we have like her mom to help us and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just a little bit harder to like the logistics of the baby and stuff like that. But again, like I'm really looking forward to like connecting with my mind again in a moment where everything's really hectic and we don't have time for that, you know.
I've even found that like I've been doing a lot of driving the last few weeks because we drove the school bus all the way to Nashville. And I've been doing like long hours and hours and hours, and it's actually been amazing, like just helping me not be on my phone or computer, and I'm just like in my head and I'm able to process things and think about stuff and use my imagination and dream about, you know, the next part, you know, chapter of my life. And I feel like we're often so distracted and so like this constantly bombarded by either social media or
information in general.
Just information. It could be just random information, but
I get it though that some people, a lot of people, and especially younger people, avoid it because they don't want to face problems that they have and things, they don't want to go there, and so they try to surround themselves by noise a lot of time. But if you just push through for a moment, you will find a place that helps you so much. Like if being there in your head and with yourself and going through what you were saying, like problems and expectations and trying to like work things before they happen, or you know, like the things that you're experiencing, it's great, dude. It leaves you a lot more calm, a lot more prepared for the things that you're about to do, even if it's a challenge or something that you're looking forward to, you know. It's something that I do a lot. As I was saying, like even through my YouTube career, it's been a huge thing for me. Like just having those moments of, you know, like just
reflection. Yeah,
reflection and walking. Or I love walking, for example, because it's, I don't know.
I used to do late night walks as I think in my early 20s, I often, whenever I was feeling like uneasy or things were going kind of crazy, I'd go and walk for hours at night as well. Just like in silent. It's like, no, like the streets were quiet. I'd be like just. So I have a question. What are you most excited about in the next chapter of your life? One with your personal life and your, you know, being a father, and then also in your kind of more professional, like your career, your YouTube stuff, what you're creating?
I think that because of the circumstances right now, it's definitely, I think, a lot about Ollie.
Yeah.
And
so is it almost like your professional stuff's kind of, your career is kind of on the back burner right now?
It definitely, for someone that has been obsessed with work, it definitely, work is just a tool right now for me to provide Ollie with what he needs. You know?
And I had a conversation with Casey a few months ago, and he was saying like he feels like he's kind of semi-retired right now, and that all he really wants to do is spend time with his kids, which sounded so great, because I know at times he's been in hardcore like hustle workaholic mode.
I still feel super ambitious and super invested in my work, but I think about providing Ollie with whatever he needs to become who he wants to become. Like that is, you know, I think a lot about the parenting that my parents did, about things that they would tell me that I didn't understand that I would understand later, things like that. Like, you understand when you're a father, and like I understand it now, but I mostly think about how can I help Ollie become the best human that he can, you know? Which is something that I never expected either. I thought it was just gonna be like more of a day-to-day thing. And now I look at him and I think like, wow, you're gonna be great, you know. In those times at 5 a.m. when I'm like holding him, like
it's all worth it.
Yeah.
Wow. Have you got any big plans? I guess doing this the pilgrimage is a big one.
Haven't you ever had like something in the horizon that you're so excited about that kind of like eclipses everything else? Like everything else is just what you have to do until that moment comes. I feel like that now. I'm very excited for July because my dad and my brother are coming to meet Ollie, which is with the pandemic they haven't been able to these 2 months.
Crazy.
So I'm really excited about that, about seeing my dad as a granddad and stuff like that, seeing my brother with Ollie, all those things. But in terms of work, I'm just doing it, you know, trying to enjoy, which is something that I've changed, trying to enjoy those hours that I spend working rather than just, I need to do all this stuff and get it over with. So I've been trying to how do you say it? Where you like, I divide the things in my...
compartmentalize.
Yeah, thank you. That word is awful for anyone that is not an English speaker. So instead of work being that thing that I have to do between Ollie and spending time with Lana and stuff like that, I've been trying to really enjoy it, you know? So that if I spend 4 hours live streaming, I enjoy those 4 hours.
Are you doing that every day?
Yeah.
Wow, so you're juggling, kind of doing 4 hours of live streaming before Ollie's awake?
Yeah.
Or when Lana has him?
Yeah, so basically I wake up we'll go to sleep. We try to go to sleep with Ollie because you have to try to, so that when they wake up you have rested. So we put Ollie down at 8:30 or something like that. It's crazy to think to go to sleep.
You go to bed at 8:30?
Yeah, but I've been trying. Most days we end up going at 9:30, but
still amazing.
If I can, I
so
do it.
early.
And at 3:30 I'm up. I change Ollie, like Lana feeds him, I change him, and I go have a shower, and I start live streaming by 4:30 or 5.
Wow, that is just like, I couldn't imagine having that life. Like, I'm a night owl, so if I'm ever up at 4:30 or 5, it's because
You haven't gone to sleep.
I stayed up all night. To go to bed I don't think I've ever, unless I've been sick or like jet lagged, I don't think I've ever got to bed at 9 p.m. But I feel like maybe, you know, you've got to make those adjustments. It sounds like you were already like an early morning person, but
I was already like that before.
I feel like I'm dreading slightly this thought that I'm going to have to get up at even 6 a.m. is like, oh, that's too early.
It'll be, and who knows?
Yeah.
Everyone has different babies, and some babies are easier at night, some babies are not. Some sleep during the day a lot, and you can have good naps that help you. But it's also, the way I'm trying to cope with it is, it's temporary.
Yeah.
Like before we know it, he's gonna be sleeping the whole night, and this is just something that we're gonna look back to. But there are good things and bad things about those stages as well. Like Ollie is right now at a point where if you put him down somewhere, he can't move. So if you're watching TV or doing something with him playing and you need to go make a coffee, for example, you can have him in his thingy and he stays there. In a couple months, he's going to be crawling.
Yeah.
Like that's not going to be possible. So I'm not going to be able to just rest him somewhere unless it's one of those little like rockers and he's hooked in or something.
Do you have the strap where you carry the baby on your body?
Yeah, but Ollie doesn't like that yet.
Okay.
And like until their neck is strong, they're kind of like uncomfortable because they have to be against you and stuff. So yeah, so as I was saying, there are good and bad things about every stage of it. and I have friends who have 2-year-olds and they're crazy. Like, it's when they can run and they can speak. And so imagine the time of your life where you're for the first time able to run confidently and scream and talk to people. Like, so that's all they do all the time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Oh wow, man! I'm excited for you.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you.
I'll be able to let you know. And
Oh yeah, we're gonna be hopefully not too far behind you with the baby.
yeah, and again, it's great. Like with everything, like we've been talking about today, mentoring and relying on friends and family that can help you through things in life is like crucial with this.
Well, I think it's interesting because in the Western world, families have become such individual units where parents, a lot of people will bring up a child without any external support from friends or other family members, and it's very much like the parents and the children, and that's the family. Whereas historically and around the world, that's so unusual, and I think it's so unhealthy to have a isolated family unit. And a lot of my friends back in the UK with that have been parenting through the pandemic have struggled so much because it's just been a nightmare, because I don't think we were ever meant to raise children alone as a couple.
Yeah.
And I think there's an African proverb that says like it takes a village to raise a child, and I really truly believe.
You know what's funny about that? We've talked about that a lot, about how back in the day, for example, women were all having kids when, like, tribes. Think of a tribe, right?
Yeah.
They're having kids, they're lactating at the same time. Different women feed different
Breastfeed the
babies
babies,
at the same time. When it's just the one mom, no one until they have kids understand the hassle that breastfeeding is, because we're trying to only breastfeed Ollie, not give bottles and stuff like that unless it's absolutely necessary for whatever reason. And it's a hard thing, like, because every woman is different. The breasts react to the babies, like feeding activity, all your normal routine affect the milk, and so in that setting it doesn't matter because any of the other women can breastfeed while someone is resting, while someone is,
Can Lana have spicy food? Because remember last time we came over,
yeah, she's
we
trying
were
not to.
eating all the hot sauces.
Yeah, she's not having any for now.
Because it would affect her milk, right?
Yeah, there's so much like science and math behind it where people think but they're not sure, and so you try to do the best you can. But yeah, like I've heard a lot of people also saying like, oh yeah, I couldn't wait for, let's say, like the in-laws that come to help or the grandparents that come to help. And I was thinking, are you crazy? Like, the first thing I did was we talked to Lana's mom and asked her to come help us in the first weeks. And honestly, like, she had to go back to work, but I would have loved to have her there for as long as we could. Because of that, because of like having family and having people help us. And again, if it wasn't the time that it is, like having my family come over and give a hand, dude.
Yeah, I want to be around as many friends as possible when we have a kid.
And the advice, dude. Like, we've had some friends that just had babies as well. The advice, we would have done awful if it wasn't because of all the friends and people that have told us, beware of this, try and do this, try and,
What are some of the biggest lessons you've learned
that
since becoming a dad?
I mean, in terms of the actual parenting, that you need help from the beginning if you can get it.
Yeah.
Like, don't be, even I remember having conversations with Lana of like, and I saying like, we might be able to do this by ourselves for the first 3 months. And like, we chose not to.
Yeah.
And it's the best thing that we could have done. That's what allowed us to like rest and sleep and have better time with Ollie when we're with him, instead of being like angry, like pieces of meat because we haven't slept or whatever. Like, that is the one thing that I chose to listen to my friends, and like,
that's great advice.
I'm so grateful. But yeah, and also, I don't know, enjoying time with, like, being a team with Lana, for example, and not, a lot of people turn to each other unconsciously in moments of like screaming, a baby screaming and yelling, like crying or whatever. And Lana and I have tried to, since before Ollie was born, we said like, we need to check on each other all the time to make sure that we're both doing fine, and that we're both comfortable, and if we need time or whatever. So yeah, that's been helpful. Like being a team with your partner, getting the help that you don't know that you need, but you definitely need, and enjoying the time with the baby, even though sometimes it's hard because it's a baby and it's crying, and babies are gonna cry.
I'd love to know whether growing up in Spain you've noticed some really big cultural differences between now living in the US, because obviously I grew up in the UK. It's all technically like the Western world, we're all kind of in developed countries, but what do you think have been some of the biggest differences, I guess raising kids, but also just in terms of your life and career and stuff, like having moved from Spain?
Well, socially is ginormous, because we're tribe people. Like we meet with our friends every day. After work, my friends still, with kids and everything, get together to have a coffee or a beer at 8 p.m. or whatever. You see family a lot more. People are less individualistic for everything than in America. I don't know how it is everywhere in America. Obviously, I only have LA to compare, right? But yeah, people are more life-driven there than work-driven. I think that one of the reasons why I became so driven with work is because I moved here and I was challenged by my surroundings at UCLA, at work, things like that.
So you kind of adopted the American
I think so.
attitude towards
Sometimes
work.
when we talk about potentially moving back to Spain eventually, because I would like Oli to grow up there, right?
Do you speak Spanish to him?
It's been hard, dude. It's been hard because I speak English with Lana, and so we've been talking about this a lot. Obviously, we're gonna talk to him in Spanish and English so that he learns both, but it's hard because in my daily life, I speak English most of the time. I'm not great with English, I'm not like a perfect speaker, but that's what we use, and so speaking to Oli in Spanish is still weird, but I try. But yeah, so we talk about this a lot. Like if we potentially move there, one of my fears is that my professional drive will dry.
Interesting.
Because people are, not that there isn't like driven people there by any means.
But I get it. It's like in Spain, it's like very common in the afternoons for people to have a siesta. It's like
people live life more than they work life.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it's very different.
I love that though. I kind of wish. And also another thing in Europe is like evening, like you would have dinner with friends not for like an hour but for like 4 hours, and it would be like. Definitely. The thing I've noticed in American restaurants is like they can't wait to kick you out to get another person in. But that just wouldn't happen in Spain. Like you would just stay
in Spain, a lunch with friends almost gets together with like the evening. Like you start at 3 and you finish maybe at 6 or something. I don't know. It's great, and you have drinks after, and whatever. But yeah, that I felt a lot. Like. There's other things, but the pandemic is a bad moment to talk about this, but people also here are really freaky about, like, for example, with kids. Like sanitizing everything and stuff like that, and
doesn't help the immune system grow.
Yeah, like people don't worry about that type of stuff as much in Spain. I don't know if it's, we're coming out of a pandemic, so it's not the best moment to talk about that, but it is another thing that people are not as scared of human contact in Spain as they are here. In America, it always feels like you're bothering someone that you're not close to if you have human interaction, if you touch, you hug, in Spain, people are, I would say that people feel more human than in America, even though in America, again, people have the same problems, they go through the same things. They appreciate family and friends in the same way.
I think it boils down to what you said about this individualism, like that in America. That's part of, I guess, it's part of the capitalist system of, individualism is what it's all about. And I read a really interesting quote. I can't remember where I saw it, but I think it was from like a Native American. It's like a Native Native American person saying that individualism is the biggest delusion of like the Western world.
Yeah.
Because it is a delusion. Like we aren't isolated individual beings. We're so interconnected.
Yeah.
Not just with other humans, but with the planet, with animals. Like I feel like we often, a lot of the damage that's done with humans fighting and wars and division, and then how we treat the planet and the environment and animals, it's like all tied into this idea that we're these single, isolated beings which aren't connected intrinsically to other stuff.
Yeah.
But it's such a lie.
It's true, dude. And isn't it funny too? Like I know that you have been out, like for a longer time because of like how you enjoy life and like all these adventure stuff that you've been into and all that stuff. But even for a person that wasn't like that, like me, it's funny how when you're a kid you don't care about being out and you're taken to all these amazing places, like natural places and mountains and places like that, and you don't care about it. And when you're growing up, like I crave it. Like every once in a while I need it. I need to be out. I'm surfing, for example, like I love because it allows me to be outside with nature, doing sports, exercise. You know what I mean? Like also being in my head a little bit because you spend a lot of time thinking because you're just waiting for the waves to come. Like it's funny that you're naturally drawn to that, even if you don't think so when you're younger.
Yeah, it's interesting looking back and realizing the things you take for granted, and just the more wise and older you get, you're like, I just think you get a broader perspective on the world and what really matters and what's really important. And yeah.
But again, regret is not great. Like I've also, since I think August or July, I started doing therapy, which is something that I've never done.
Wow.
Because I have so many friends that would tell me like, oh, it's great. So I didn't have any like problem necessarily that like threw me into therapy. It was like, oh, I want to try it.
But you've had kind of traumatic things happen over the last couple of years, and it's good to like be able to talk through it.
I think everyone should if they can. And
it's funny, I'm a little bit reluctant with therapy only because I feel like if I've got good enough friends to talk stuff through with, why would I pay somebody to listen to me?
I think,
but maybe that's a bad attitude because I love to talk. Like, don't get me wrong, I will talk about my feelings, but I think I grew up in like a church community where I talked a lot to people about stuff all the time. So I feel like there's this like, partly it's like, I think if that people don't have people to support them and listen to them, then that know what they're talking about as well. Yeah, maybe it's important to have somebody that's trained to know what they're saying as well.
I mean, I guess it also depends on the type of person, right? Like if you can be a very open person about your emotions, and there might be another person that is not like that doesn't share, and therapy is the place where they find a judgment-free space to do that, you know?
Oh, I guess, and also if you want to talk about things that you might not necessarily want to tell all your friends.
Well, I mean, it could be, but I feel like therapists find their way through your bullshit really fast and find like the reasons why you do certain things, why you react in a certain way to things. They figure you out really fast based on what you tell them about your life, the things that you focus on when you're, like telling them who you are.
Yeah, maybe I should go to therapy. I honestly I'm like you in a way. I'm like, I don't think there's like one specific thing I need to resolve in my life, but I can't see it doing any harm. Like I can see it. Yeah. It's definitely. I mean, how have you felt? Has it been good? It's been
great. Good. It's been great. It's helped me realize things about myself that I didn't realize, even though I kind of knew,
Yeah.
But I hadn't like pinpointed. And it's helped me accept things. Like what I was gonna. The reason why I brought therapy was to say that I can't live in regret with choices or things that I didn't do. So things that I did or did not do in the past.
Yeah.
Because all those things and who I was when I was 15, 20, 25 are the reason why I am who I am today.
Exactly, yeah. I feel the same. There's a few things in my life I look back on and I'm like, that was not a nice experience, and part of me would like to erase that from my life. But then I'm like, if I erase that from my life, maybe I would have never learned the things that have helped me become who I am now.
Yeah, absolutely. I always look back at, when I was a teenager and when I was in my early 20s, and because I'm so driven nowadays, I'm always like, I wish I had been like that back then, that I cared more about what I was doing, you know, so that I could get more out of it. But I can't blame, so I for a long time I've had that fight with my 15-year-old self, where I would like point at him and be like, dude, I hate that you were like that, you know? And like, it was therapy that helped me be like, that's all right, like he's the reason why I've become who I am, you know? Like he did what he had to do at that point and what he thought that was best with what was going on, you know, like what was around me, stuff like that. And that's just one of the examples of the thousands of things that people could experience with therapy. And people, I guess, we all think of therapy in a very judgmental way as well, but the truth is that it's just sitting down with someone to voice things that you sometimes talk to yourself about in your head, and that voicing out helps you, sometimes even without the therapist doing much. It helps you listen to yourself of the problems that you have or all these things with a different like ear.
And I think some people can like journal and write down, but I'm very like, I need to verbalize. I have to talk about my issues. Or just everything. Well, I'd love to, as we're kind of ending, just hear maybe like, what would you, for people listening and watching, have you got any life advice that you would leave from the conversations we've been having, or things that you think about? Like, what advice would you leave people with?
I think, I mean, thousands of things could be said to people about life advice. I think the one that has helped me the most has been give perspective to the problems and the things that you experience. So sometimes we tend to magnify the things that happen in our life at one specific point, and then we grow older and we look back and we think it wasn't that bad, and it helped me achieve this other thing and whatnot. And I think that having that image of us as older people, as a 70-year-old grandpa sitting at home or whatever, looking back into these experiences, like helps a lot to put them in the correct, you know, in the correct place in the line. And I would say, people try to concentrate less on the things that hurt you and try to focus more on the good things that you have in life and the people that surround you. Because it's, at the end of the day, it's the things that matter the most, I think.
Yeah, I love that, bro. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Good luck. Thank you very much for having me, and I hope to see you soon. Hopefully, with news about babies, about things. Another thing,
we'll come and visit when we're back in California with Raya.
Another thing about people with kids is they suddenly want everyone else to have kids too. So, take care.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to follow Luzu and Pops and subscribe to this podcast for future episodes. Please leave a comment suggesting future guests you'd like to see on the show.